Okay, so I think we will get going now. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lee Panglia. I head up the CIPD team in Scotland and Northern Ireland, and I'm delighted to be hosting today's session on the Young Persons Guarantee. What role can employers play? The fact that so many of you have joined us today is testament to the fact that the topic of protecting young people's life chances and the key role that we play as HR professionals in supporting the Young Persons Guarantee is forefront of mind for many of us working in people in development across Scotland. I'm sure Leona, who is our first speaker today, will share a little bit more of the Young Persons Guarantee No One Left Behind report that was released in November last year, which outlined a programme to support young people and ultimately guarantee them a place in education and training or employment within the next 2 years. Employers and HR professionals are integral to the design, delivery and the success of this programme, and in particular to operationalising it across organisations of all sizes and across all industry sectors across Scotland. We're delighted as CIPD Scotland to support the Scottish Government to outline how and why organisations should get involved and what we can do as HR professionals to support this. We have just under 11,000 members, CIPD members in Scotland, working in organisations of all sizes and including those working in independent practitioner roles, supporting those smaller organisations that are key to our economy but often the hardest to reach. So there's a huge opportunity for us to make a difference. So this event is the second in a series of events and activities planned throughout the year. Some of you may have already attended our conference in March, where we hosted a panel discussion, which was, I guess, setting the scene for the Young Persons Guarantee and why it's important to the Scottish economy. And over the coming months, our plan is to support the teams in Scottish Government who deliver these programmes, to share key messages across our membership and perhaps clarify, maybe demystify some of the programmes and really demonstrate how you can get involved in the different initiatives and programmes that are available to all of you. So I'm pleased to announce Leona Seaton from the Scottish Government, who will go through some of that with you. These sessions also allow us to highlight good practice, to signpost good practice and to share case studies of organisations who invest in the young workforce and to, I guess, demonstrate the return it brings to their business. And so I'm really delighted to introduce three colleagues, three ladies from Scottish Power, who have agreed to join us today to explain how they invest in their young workforce. And I won't say any more than that at this stage, because I'm sure they've got lots to share with you later. So that's Melanie Hill, Mary Elder and Lucy Jefferson are joining us. So that's great that not only have we got two individuals who are running the programmes, but we've also got Lucy, who is going to share with us her experience as the young person benefiting from the programmes. So I've just got a couple of housekeeping things to share with you before I introduce our speakers. So the session is being recorded and will be shared afterwards. It will be available on demand afterwards, and the slides will be available too. All of you are muted. To submit questions to the panel, please use the Q&A function, and please do that throughout the session. So as I said, we've got Leona speaking first and then Scottish Power, and then we will have some time for questions at the end. But please, as you think of things to ask the panel, do share those in the Q&A function so that we can open up for discussion at the end. And that's enough from me, I think, for now. So I am going to introduce Leona as the first speaker today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today about the Young Persons Guarantee. I won't take too long because it's always more interesting, I think, to hear from people who do the actual delivery part of it than people like myself who cook up the policy part of it within government. So I won't take too much of your time today, but I thought it'd be helpful to set a bit of the scene about the Young Persons Guarantee, what it is, and how we might engage with CIPD and members like yourself around the Young Persons Guarantee. So in its simplest form, Young Persons Guarantee is that every young person in Scotland aged between 16 and 24 will have the opportunity of going to university, college, apprenticeships, training or fair employment, including work experience or participating in a formal volunteering programme. So this is about recognising that young people are at different points on their journey into work, and it's about meeting those young people where they're at in a person-centred way, and ensuring that we have enough opportunities available so that young people are always in positive destinations. And I'm sure you can imagine how important employers are to that, and that you're fundamental, and your support for a programme like the Young Persons Guarantee is absolutely fundamental to its success and ultimately our shared success in terms of Scotland's economy and prosperity. Can I get the next slide, please, Olivia? We have and are emerging from a significant economic shock, and as is always the case with any economic shock, there are implications for the labour market. And what we know from this recession, from previous recessions, is that young people are disproportionately impacted when we have any economic downturns. You'll see on the slides, and I won't labour these because these will be available and you can read them at your leisure. Well, what you'll see is that Scotland was performing really well after the 2008 shock. We saw the reality of that with young people's unemployment in 2011, and since the introduction of Developing the Young Workforce in 2014, we started to see a steady rise in employment rates for young people in Scotland. And then in 2020, you can see that the closure of business through the pandemic had a huge impact on young people. One of the reasons for that is that young people work predominantly in the sectors which were most effective, such as hospitality, tourism and leisure. And then there were also other implications where we had young people leaving various education settings into an uncertain labour market. So there's a huge emphasis just now on ensuring that we don't have a scarring effect on a generation of young people as a result of the pandemic. It's worth caveating any of these labour market statistics with the job retention scheme, and we currently don't know, and our analysts are currently looking at what the implications are for when the job retention scheme comes to an end. So we we're looking at potentially a bleak picture, or potentially not such a bleak picture in terms of some of this youth unemployment rates. Can I get the next slide, please? What you'll see is there's always a gap. Young people don't have as many employment opportunities as older workers, and whenever there is an economic downturn, you start to see the trend from 2008 up to the peak in 2011, that the gap in unemployment between young workers and older workers significantly increases. And you can start to see that trend, as I said, following 2014 to start to come back down again. However, you look at 2020 and you can start to see that peak starting to rise again for young people. So it's incredibly important that we are agile and we are creative in our response to ensuring that young people have opportunities. And the Young Persons Guarantee, led by Sandy Begbie, is committed to ensuring that we do all that we can with the resources that we have at our disposal to ensure that young people succeed. The next slide, please. We recently had a Scottish election, which I'm sure many of you will be aware of, and in the first 100 days commitments from the new administration, they laid out some key areas, and that ranges from increasing free school meals from primary 4 to a number of policy areas. But the ones that impact mostly on the Young Persons Guarantee are to appoint a minister specifically tasked with supporting youth unemployment, and we currently have Mr. Hepburn who has that responsibility. to invest £45 million through local partnerships to provide training and employer recruitment incentives, and that's being administered by the 32 local authorities across Scotland. To fund colleges, to roll out new schools coordinators, and for anybody who's previously been involved in developing the young workforce, you'll recognise this as a significant investment and an enhancement of the delivery of the regional developing the young workforce groups. And now every school in Scotland has the equivalent of 0.5 of a coordinator working in their school to increase the employer engagement for young people. And the establishment, and there'll be announcements in the coming weeks about a new graduate internship scheme. So these are the things I think that our team are working on in the first 100 days of the new administration. And I thought it would be helpful for the group to see that. Can I have the next slide, please, Olivia? So, as I mentioned, the Young Persons Guarantee was written by Sandy Begbie, who's the Chief Executive of Scottish Financial Enterprise, and Sandy's very, very focused on this, achieving a simplified route for employers to engage with the youth employment and skills system. And Sandy has laid out a series of principles, because I think, you know, we're very keen to be able to explain what the Young Persons Guarantee is, but also what the Young Persons Guarantee isn't. And as you'll read through these, you'll see there's some of the particular ones that we've highlighted. So it is a strategic solution that supports young people from the early years of secondary school through to starting employment. So you won't see that because I've put green slides with green writing, which is not particularly helpful for anyone. It is the wiring which sits above all other programmes, and the agencies are there to deliver its ambition. So this is a strategic policy intent. This isn't a lot of new initiatives and new programmes, and I'll start to come on to why that's important in terms of the employer engagement. It is what draws everything else together. It has no end date. It is about delivering sustainable change in the youth employment area. And while the Young Persons Guarantee was born out of the concern for young people as a result of the COVID pandemic, it is actually a programme of work which is about creating a world-leading skills and employment system for Scotland. And the guarantee can simplify the complex landscape by making it easier to connect young people and employers. And these are the driving ambitions, I guess, for the work that we do. This is the acid test of any programmes that we link and associate with the Young Persons Guarantee. Is it simplifying? Is it hiding the wire, and is it supporting the right young people? Is it sustained change, or is it short-term programmes? And we have to be mindful of these as we work through this. The next slide, Olivia, please. I thought it would be helpful for you to see the governance across the Young Persons Guarantee. It's incredibly important that this is driven by both the views of young people and employers. So at a political level, we have our Cabinet Secretary for Education and Skills, Shirley-Ann Somerville, and our Minister leading on the Young Persons Guarantee is Jamie Hepburn, with responsibility for higher and further education, youth employment and training. In terms of employer leadership, Sandy leads on the advisory group and has recently been appointed to chair of the Developing Young Workforce Employer Group. We have Melanie, who's joining us today for Scottish Power, who chairs our Employer Advisory Group, and this is the group that we test our ideas and test our policy areas for implications for employers to help shape and ensure that the impact it has works for employers as the customers. And we have Graham McEwan, who's the Chief Executive of MCR Pathways, who's heading up our communications and marketing. We also have a Young Persons Leadership Panel. So this is about co-design with young people in terms of the activity across the guarantee. And maybe less relevant for this group, but we have joint governance between the Young Persons Guarantee and No One Left Behind, which are the two key policy areas for all age and young people in terms of employment and skills. The next slide. So when we looked at how do we engage employers around the Young Persons Guarantee, and this is back in November, we were seeing the implications of lockdown. We were starting to see a bit of recovery as we all adapted to different styles of working and different approaches. And we were trying to be mindful of everything that Sandy had laid out in terms of the commitments of the Young Person's Guarantee. So it had to be something that simplified the landscape. It had to not be a series of new initiatives. It had to be something that was proportionate and recognised where employers were at that point in time, and where they might be in a couple of years' time, because this isn't a short-term initiative. So this was about taking, I guess, stock of everything that employers can do and have been doing for decades to support the youth employment and skills landscape, and bringing those in some kind of coordinated fashion around how do we align that employer support and how do we recognise that employer support across youth employment and skills. And where we arrived at were the 5 employer commitments. And these are the ways in which we encourage employers to show their support to the Young Person's Guarantee. Now, that could be with a local provider in your local area, that might be with your own local authority, it might be through the Department for Work and Pensions Kickstart scheme, it might be engaging with a local school, it might be engaging with a national provider, and Mary and Melanie will talk more eloquently than I can about what that looks like and how that feels for, you know, national employers delivering at local level. But to run through them quickly, the first one is to prepare young people for the world of work. And for anybody who's been involved in developing the young workforce before, this will be very familiar. This is about the range and extent of support that employers can offer to young people who are in education, be that school, college, or university. And this is about, you know, the type and range of activity that you can do for that. And then the second one is to help all young people to achieve their potential. So this is the support that can be provided to young people who are looking for work, so they're not in education, employment or training. And that can be, you know, particularly focused on young people who might have barriers to work for a variety of reasons. The third one is to invest in a skilled workforce. So this is all your work-based learning, your modern and graduate apprenticeship programmes, and training and upskilling opportunities like graduate internships or traineeships that can be offered to young people. The fourth one is to create jobs, volunteering and training opportunities for young people. And this is around, you know, initiatives like supporting employer recruitment incentives. It's around Kickstart programmes. We do recognise that you can't create a job and say it's for a 16 to 24-year-old exclusively, but there are a number of initiatives and programmes in which you can target that support at that age group. And the last one is broader, I think, than 16 to 24-year-olds. It's about creating an inclusive and fair workplace. So this is about recognising the principles of fair work and the range of initiatives around things like the living wage and disability confidence. So this is about, you know, good working practices, which, like I said, have implications beyond 16 to 24-year-olds. What we do is we ask employers to show their commitment to those 5 areas through completing a pro forma and outlining what they think they can deliver in a 12-month period, and we will support them in any way we can to meet those deliverables and to have a forward plan for the following 12 months. Anybody who wants to show their commitment to the Young Person's Guarantee, my team in the Scottish Government, we can support national employers and our public sector partners. And for anybody who's more of a local partner, that can be supported through your Developing the Young Workforce group, who can help you with those on the ground relationships at a local level. And I'm sure we can share the details of the regional groups and my team after this. And then I'm just going to go on to my last slide, Olivia. So why would you sign up to the guarantee? And I hope Melanie and Mary are going to cover that from an employer perspective, but these are some of the areas. It's recognition as an employer of choice for young people. It's not an accreditation. It's very important that I say that. It's not an accreditation. We will not come in and mark your pro forma. This is about showing a commitment to the Young Person's Guarantee. And as such, in the coming weeks, we'll be able to give the employers who've shown their commitment some branding and materials to use on job adverts and things like that. It's to showcase the range and extent of your support provided to young people. So we're building a Young Person's Guarantee website, and we fully intend to be able to highlight and showcase the great work that employers are doing to support young people on that website, and you can be part of that. And I think it's really important, particularly just now, the Prince's Trust did a survey with young people, and the 60% of those young people who responded said that they felt right now it was hopeless to find work. And yet, you know, on a daily basis, I speak to fantastic employers who are doing a huge amount of work to support this agenda. So, you know, we'd love to be able to communicate that effectively to young people, to give them some kind of hope and confidence in what lies ahead. The coordination and planning around your youth engagement approach, a number of the employers who've already signed up have said that actually completing it and pulling the information together in this format has helped them to be able to see the extent of what they're doing, and then also to kind of review what they're doing and understand, you know, are we putting our resources in the right place? Are we putting our resources in the, you know, the key areas that we want to see outcomes in? Links to other employers nationally and locally, and we'll work on a programme to link employers and peer support, showcase events, support to identify and develop areas you may want to develop. So it may be that you look across this, and I should have said that actually employers don't need to sign up to all 5 asks. It's proportionate to what you do. So if you're a, you know, small business and you're engaging with the school, you are committing to the Young Person's Guarantee, and your commitment and support is as important as everybody else's. But there may, as you go through this process and work with either my team or the Developing Young Workforce group, there may be areas that you want to develop, and, you know, it's our job to help you to do that, and then to communicate the support available to young people in your area. So it's about that hope and confidence again, or as my colleague Ed describes it, it's about a narrative of hope for young people to understand what's available. So I'll stop there, and I can take questions at the end, but like I said, you'd probably rather hear from Mary, Melanie and Lucy than myself. Thank you.
Thanks, Leona, and sorry, and good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for this opportunity, Leanne, to share our involvement in the Young Person's Guarantee. So my name's Melanie Hill, and it says here I'm Director of Social Projects and Sector Education at Scottish Power. And you're going to be hearing from Marion, who works with me day to day, and Lucy, who's one of our Year in Industry students, which is one of the programmes that we're going to tell you about how we are enacting the Young Person's Guarantee. So just to set a little bit of context so about who Scottish Power is, Olivia, if you wouldn't mind, thank you. So Scottish Power is part of the Iberdrola group. So you might have know of the name Scottish Power, but you might not be familiar with the company that we're part of an overall global group now. And Iberdrola Group, as it says here, is one of the largest integrated utility companies in the world, and a world leader, particularly in wind energy. So we employ approximately 40,000 people globally. We have main employment areas in the UK and Spain, where we began, in America, Mexico and Brazil. But increasingly we're working in other areas, Greece and Italy and other areas across the globe. And the whole point, a large part of what we are doing is about that, being pioneers in wind energy, and particularly the drive towards 100% clean electricity, and to obviously safeguarding the future of our planet that way. For Scottish Power, Scottish Power in the UK, we're made up of 4 main businesses. So the main businesses being the networks business. So when I was introduced to that, that was the pipes and wires underground and the wires overhead that distributes all the energy around the UK. The renewables business, so our renewable generating that we have, and the retail business, so the part of the business that trades electricity and also that you pay your bill to, usually the more painful part. And then overseeing that is the part of the business that myself and my colleagues work in, and that's the corporate business. And we have the, that's where you'd get HR and IT, fleet facilities, etc. And we work across all 3 of those different businesses that make up Scottish Power. So on the next slide, just to explain to you a little bit about why we would support the Young Person's Guarantee. And I guess what comes up here is a number of the sort of keywords that I'm sure you would expect to hear round about this particular part. But a big part of that is, for us as an employer, we very much are very values driven, and we want to really reflect the society that we the community that we serve every single day. So a big part of what our company is about is provision of electricity, and never more so more important than during the recent pandemic, when almost invisibly behind the scenes there's extra effort going in to ensure that hospitals had extra generators, etc., because you've got your key services like the health service, like the police and fire service, but that sort of hidden service behind us, we all are depending more and more on electricity. And we are a big recruiter of young people and have a long tradition of recruiting apprenticeships in many different forums for over 50 years. But in doing that, and I've not worked with them all for 50 years, but I have worked for quite a long time in this space. And we recognise that not every young person has the same opportunity, whether that's at home or at school, and they don't have the same support network. So we've certainly seen that firsthand, and really this is really resonated with us, that the Young Persons Guarantee is about trying to address that and help those younger people who may not have that same support network and positive experience that some other young people enjoy. The other thing we looked at when we looked at the guarantee was what was involved and what Leona said there about the 5 elements. And we looked through that and thought, we are doing a lot of this anyway. So therefore, we are doing this, and we're not, and why would we not join up to the Young Persons Guarantee almost? And I think there's an element of what that said there about being an employer of choice is a benefit for us. We're a big brand, and we recognise, and a big employer in Scotland, and we recognise that, but we're also a business. We're not doing this for just the altruistic benefit. This makes a difference to our workforce, and as a result, young people are the lifeblood of what comes through and passing on the knowledge generation to generation. So we absolutely can support what it's there to do. We also really like the fact that it wasn't an initiative, that it is about something that is for the long term, and it's also about simplification. It is a confusing landscape as an employer, and I think that's regardless of whether you're a large employer or a small employer, trying to navigate around funding, around access to information, access to young people, etc., is very confusing, and I'm really inspired to be involved in helping to try and get involved in simplifying that. And then I guess we're hoping that we would, our involvement will be seen as supportive, and that other people will feel that they can get involved too. And I think that's one of the things I would really say is you will look at what you're already doing and say a number of these elements are in the Young Persons Guarantee, and I think that's one of the things that's not to be put off, that is something too difficult, because it isn't about having to do everything. It's about doing some of them, and then it actually highlights where you maybe aren't doing some work, and think it makes, and it certainly has helped us to focus on what more could we do in this space. So that's why we're involved. So I'll just pass on to Mary now to tell you a little bit more about what we're actually doing day to day.
Thanks, Melanie, and thanks everyone for inviting us along this afternoon. My name's Mary Elder. So Melanie talked a little bit there about why we do it. Why is Scottish Power involved? So I want to talk for the next 5-10 minutes about how we do it. And I think you can see from that slide, it's very much a partnership approach. So we're a small team, small but perfectly formed team over in HR, and we couldn't do it without our partners. So those partners could be third sector, or they could be further education partners, but we need them to help us deliver the model that we have in Scottish Power. I think the other important thing to say here is that these partnerships have been built up over time. I personally have been working in this space since 2010, and it didn't happen overnight. If this slide had been up back in 2010, there'd be 1 or 2 partners there. So we started small, and that's the way that we approach things in our team. If there's something new that comes along, to evaluate it, we look at it. If we decide to do it, we start small. We check out the proof of concept, and if it works for us, we then build, and we build slowly. So even although we're a big employer, as Melanie says, with 6,000 staff in the UK, we don't just go for the big hitters with high volumes. Some of the programmes we're on have very small amounts of young people on them. Some have more. So it's that balance, but I think the important thing is that it's been done over a length of time. It doesn't happen overnight. We focus on key talent groups and in key locations which fit our business strategy. And some of the partners that are on the screen you may be familiar with, and some you may not. And I think we're happy after this, although we've got time for questions, if there's anything in particular you'd like to speak to myself or Melanie or Lucy about, we're happy for Leanne to pass on our details afterwards. I'm conscious we can't tell you all in an hour. Thank you, Olivia. If you could move on to the next slide, please. So, today I'm going to talk about the pre-employment elements of Scottish Power's programme, which links into the 5 commitments of the Young Persons Guarantee. We also, like many of you who are on the call today, probably run an annual recruitment cycle for employed programmes. So that's your modern apprentices, your graduate apprentices, and your graduates. So we do that, that's just business as usual at Scottish Power, and this year we're taking on our highest number of trainees for a long time. It's live at the moment for 180 young people to join us. So big campaign on at the moment. So I'm going to talk about the pre-employment programmes, and I've split it into 4 distinct buckets for us today. So if we start at the bottom of the triangle, we've got an offering for school leavers who have low or no qualifications. And Leona mentioned barriers for some young people. So in some of these programmes there are barriers, and we're trying to support the young people to overcome these and to be the best they can in the workplace. So an example of that would be the Breaking Barriers programme. So with Breaking Barriers, we work with the partner Enable Scotland and Strathclyde University Business School, and we give young people an experience of work following an experience at university that, in their own words, they never imagined they'd be able to do that. We're in our 4th year of supporting Breaking Barriers, and I had the honour of facilitating the closing ceremony last week, and I'm looking forward to going to their graduation from Strathclyde University in November, because they graduate, the young people in this programme graduate along with all the other graduates who are leaving the business school. So it's a great programme to be involved in. Similarly, Barnardo's is a new programme for us, Barnardo's Works. Some of you may have heard of that. We're working with Barnardo's on a pilot programme to launch in September this year, where we'll work with 16 to 29-year-olds on an employability programme. So they come from long-term unemployed, and we're going to give them a work experience over 4 to 6 weeks, hopefully in our office. If not, we've got used to doing virtual work experiences over the last 18 months. So moving up quickly, pre-apprentice is for young school leavers again, who don't quite have the entry qualification to join our modern apprenticeship programmes. So they maybe have 2 National 5s rather than 3, they just don't quite have enough. So we'll take them to college, we'll give them a bursary. We run it across 3 colleges, 2 in the north and 1 in the south. And we have 42 young people studying with us. They get work experience at Scottish Power as part of their college learning. And we hope that most will go on to a positive destination that suits them. Some will be with Scottish Power as modern apprentices. Some stay on in further education because they get the bug and they want to stay on and move their qualifications up a level. And some leave and join our supply chain and other employers. So it's a great programme for young people. Kickstart, I won't labour today because I think we know that's the government programme that's launched across the country for young people to give them a work experience, and we're supporting Kickstart via one of our other partners who are called Halo, and Halo are opening a virtual digital academy down in Kilmarnock, and they're taking on 200 young people as part of that programme, and we're supporting with the employability part of that as part of our offering to Halo as our partner. Step Up Glasgow, to move on, I think it's a wonderful programme, and we've just signed up 2 young people we're hoping to bring in soon to our offices in Glasgow. It's almost like Glasgow's a version of Kickstart. It's got all the same rules as Kickstart. The only difference is you don't have to be in universal credit. And I think that's great because young people leaving school they can join this programme, get 6 months of work experience with us as a business, and improve their CV, improve their skills, and get all of that without having to be on universal credit and be part of that process. So we're catching them just that little bit earlier, hopefully, and they'll move on to great things. So in that entry level, lots of programmes that we support, and these are just some of them. Lucy will talk just in a moment or two. She sits in this, the next camp, which she's looking at the Year in Industry programme. So Year in Industry we run with a partner called the Engineering Development Trust. It's for young people to come in and have an experience for a year with a business. Now, they could be school leavers with A-levels or highers who just aren't sure what they want to do at university. They may have a deferred place. Or if we go up into the next bucket up, it could be somebody who's left university, and that's the case with Lucy, who's going to speak shortly. They've left university, and we know the graduate market isn't great just now. We at Scottish Power had a 47% increase in graduate applications this year. So we know that it's difficult to get a job, and that could just be the year they need for the market to settle, for them to find their way. And it could be that they find an opportunity within the business during that year. So that's a Year in Industry, and Lucy will tell you more about that shortly. For undergraduates, we've got Kickstart offerings, we've got Year in Industry, as I mentioned. We've also got summer placements, and I'm delighted that our summer students started today. So we've got 60 summer students who joined us this morning. Melanie's son is one of them, so that's great for her. I'm sure he's going to say great things about it when he gets my induction tomorrow. So they join us for 12 to 16 weeks over the summer, and that gives them a taster for our business, and we really hope that lots of them apply for our graduate programme. Internships we do slightly less of, on average maybe about 5 a year, and they come in either during their degree as part of a sandwich degree, and they come in for a full year, or it could be for a number of months just for an experience. And we, at a global level, sponsor students across our company to gain a master's qualification. And for these master's scholarships, which we offer roughly 12 each year in the UK, and the universities range from Imperial College London up to Edinburgh and Glasgow universities. And we offer them a scholarship which is funded. So they earn money during the year. They don't need to do part-time work. They can concentrate on their studies. They get a mentor from Scottish Power to support them with their project during their master's year. And we tend to sponsor students doing a master's in a hard-to-fill area for Scottish Power. So Melanie explained about our company at the start, and we're an engineering company at heart, but we have great digital opportunities, but because we're not known for that, we tend to get less applications for our IT, our cyber and our digital type roles. So if we can sponsor students to do their scholarships, at the end of their masters, we can then take them into our graduate programme, and we offer all our master's students a graduate job at the end. They don't all take it. We'd love them all to take it. Some stay on and do PhDs, but we're sitting at round about 80% on that, so we're doing really quite well. And last but not least, we've been running now for 4 years. I think this is the 4th year now of our returners programme. It started off with Equate, and it was a women's returners programme, which focused on women who had had a 2-year gap from a STEM career, and it allowed them to come back in, get 6 months, as it was at the time, experience with Scottish Power, and gain some skills, build up their confidence and move on to their next job. That programme's evolved, and now it's open to anyone, so it's not just for women. And also this year, rather than have the 2-year gap, we were conscious that the pandemic had impacted so many of us in so many different ways that we decided to extend the criteria and allow people to join us who had lost a job due to the pandemic. So they didn't need to evidence they'd had 2-year gap on their CV from the world of work. Again, that programme's been very successful. Our business are asking us to run second cohorts of it so that we can bring in more, because we find that we convert a lot of this talent. It's almost like hidden talent, and I think the people on the programme don't know their talent. I think that because a lot have lost their confidence over time, I think coming back in and gaining it again, they recognise that they are real talent, and they move into opportunities either linked to their current placement or the wider business opportunities. So in a nutshell, talking very quickly and conscious of time, these are our key pre-employment programmes where we provide good quality work experience. And maybe if I end on that note, I emphasise to all the managers who support us to deliver in this very busy space, don't take a young person thinking it's free headcount for your business area, that it'll just be great, they can come in and do some work for you. Yes, they can, and there's real talent across this area, but these young people need supported. It could be their first time in the world of work. So don't think that you're going to have 100% active day one delivering for you. You need to make sure you put in the time to build that young person's skills and confidence and get them to be an integral part of your workforce for the time that they're there, be it a short time or be it up to the year, which is our longest programme. So that is me, and I'd be delighted to take any questions at the end. And I'm going to pass over to Lucy to tell you what it's really like to be in one of our programmes.
Great, thank you so much, Mary. Thank you for having me along today to speak a little bit about my experience with Scottish Power. Just a little bit about my background. So I recently graduated from Robert Gordon University in Aberdeen. When I say recently, it was actually a year ago now, which is really scary how fast that's gone. But yes, I graduated with a degree in management with HRM. And so with Scottish Power, what's great about what they do is that they have so many different kind of entry routes for people. So I've had a little bit of a journey with Scottish Power and their different kind of traineeships. So the first thing that I did was when I was at university, I completed one of the internships as part of my third year university. I did a year-long placement with Scottish Power. And so that was brilliant. It was brilliant to not only apply the university learning I'd gained so far into Scottish Power, but then I was able to take what I learned at Scottish Power back into my fourth year of university, which was so valuable, extremely valuable. I really highly recommend to anybody to do a university placement if they have the opportunity. And so after graduating, I was going to return to Scottish Power to complete a summer placement, but then due to COVID-19, that didn't work out. As I'm sure you can imagine, it was just crazy at the time, and I was supposed to go traveling as well, which also got cancelled. So our strategic HRM director asked me if I would like to come on and do a year in industry traineeship instead, which I of course absolutely jumped at that opportunity. The graduate market is horrendous at the moment, and I'd had such a great experience working with Scottish Power while I was at university, so I was absolutely delighted at the prospect of coming back for another year. And so that was back in July that I started that, and so I'm about to finish that this coming July. But I've actually been offered a fixed contract until the end of December with Scottish Power now to gain a bit more experience specifically in the recruitment area of HR. I didn't mention that at the start. My placements have all been within HR specifically. And so I have had a huge amount of opportunities offered to me by Scottish Power. I've worked on a really great variety of projects. I've specifically worked within the HR solutions team. So a lot of the stuff they do is project based, which means that I've not only got to work with a lot of people across the whole of HR, but with, I think, every area of the business that Melanie explained earlier. So that's been brilliant. And while I was on my university internship, I actually managed the Breaking Barriers programme that Mary spoke about. So that meant that I got to work with Enable Scotland and Strathclyde University as well, it was such an amazing experience. I would have loved to have run that again for the next however long. It was such a great experience. I loved it. And I've also done quite a lot of stuff in the kind of strategic HRM space. So for the last half year or so, I've been working on succession planning with our talent lead. We were asked to kind of create a new succession planning approach, build that up from scratch, and we're now implementing that across the entire business. So again, I'm getting to work with people across the entirety of Scottish Power, which is brilliant. And as I mentioned before, I'm now going to start working in recruitment as well, which is obviously a core part of HR. So I'm really, really looking forward to getting that kind of operational experience. And yes, so I'm so grateful to Scottish Power for all the different opportunities that they have given me. So I think it'll be 2.5 years by the end of December. And I can honestly say that I've learned so much, and it's been such a great way to kind of start my career. So very grateful.
Thank you, Lucy, for sharing that.
No problem.
I think for and of course, thank you to Leona and Mary and Melanie too. I think it's particularly nice for us to hear, as an audience of HR professionals, to hear your experience of your own positive experience in your journey.
Yeah.
But it's great that you're one of us too. So you're very much our own early talent, aren't you?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
It's, I think particularly relevant and good to hear. So thank you to all of our speakers for sharing their insights so far. So I'd like to ask any of you in the audience, if you do have any questions, now's your chance to post them. I know that all of our speakers said that they're available afterwards, which is wonderful. But I'm sure some of you might have some questions already. Now, I know that we've had one posted in our chat from Nicola Smith, and this may have been answered throughout your session. Are the opportunities with Scottish Power available to young people across Scotland? Mary, I don't know if you would want to pick that up, because that's probably around some of the practical initiatives you talked about.
So yes, a lot of our opportunities are available. We're based across the central belt of Scotland as our patch, if you like, and down as far as Dumfries and Galloway, also round about the Liverpool area and North Wales. So we have some opportunities in all of these areas. Not every programme runs in every area. An example of that would be Breaking Barriers that we talked about. It's just run out of our central Glasgow HQ. We don't have an equivalent in the south. But for some programmes, we run them across north and south, like the pre-apprentice programme. We run that in Glasgow and Edinburgh and in the Cheshire area.
Okay, no, thank you for that. Olivia, can you check if I'm missing any questions?
I think everyone's being a bit shy. Maybe because the presentations were so comprehensive.
Yes, so I if it's okay, then I will go ahead, because when you were talking, so it was Leona and Melanie's session. So Melanie, you're chairing an employer advisory group. I hope that's the right terminology to you. So how do, and I know that it's a group of key stakeholders that you're working with, but if there's anyone listening now or when they listen to it on demand, how can they get, and if they've got great ideas or questions or observations, how can they input into the advisory group?
Well, I think that's the thing that's really important here, is that, you know, we're trying to, we've had one meeting so far, we're brand new, and what we're trying to do there is work with people who've already signed up to the Young Persons Guarantee. So that's what I think Leona's hopefully outlined. I've shared a lot more information that people might not be familiar with what's involved, but I would suggest they look at what's involved in it in a little bit more detail, and then they can approach us about that, because we'd like the group to be able to represent employment across Scotland. So that's large employers like ourselves, but also the SME population, and also the charitable section, because the charitable area as employers often gets missed out. And we very much feel on the group so far that there will be some things that are, regardless of the size of you as an employer in Scotland, will be the same issues, but we also are quite cognizant, or we expect as we go through this, to find that there are some things that are more problematic or more opportunistic, depending on if you're a large employer, a smaller employer. So that's definitely the way forward, and we want that group to represent all of the employment in Scotland. So we're starting relatively small, just like Mary said. Our approach usually is to start small and then find people wanting that demand, that wants to get involved and share information. One of the first things we're going to be doing is actually data gathering within our group of employers to find out what they come across that works in the system just now, or what barriers there are. And again, that's so that we don't make assumptions about what we, maybe because what Mary and I experience as a barrier might not be there for somebody else. So we don't have any blind spots. But what's really positive is this is a real opportunity to try and have that employer voice heard in a way that's not happened before. So that talk about hope for the children, I think this is the same. This is the fact that it's the young people on one side, we want them to not be feeling hopeless and have a real voice, and the same for employers. We want to sort of everybody in the system that develops the system has got good intent, but the reality can be quite frustrating for employers. And I think this is our opportunity to try and do that kind of drains up look at it.
Mm-hmm. No, thank you for that. I think that your point around everyone has great and good intent, don't they? For this, it's about navigating the different programmes, the different routes to funding, the different opportunities out there. And I think for me, and I think many others, it's the intent to simplify. Mm-hmm. I think is key here. So I think we do have another question. Olivia, would you like to ask it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's came from John, so he's asking, I guess, Melanie, Mary and Lucy maybe even better to answer, but what types of tasks would a young person, so he's talking about interns, but I guess a young person going through any of the programmes that you run, what kind of thing would they do? So maybe what would Lucy's a typical day look like? I don't know if there is a typical day in HR, but maybe just a flavour of what kind of things you might get involved in, Lucy.
Yeah,
sorry to put you on the spot as well.
No, that's totally fine, no worries. So Scottish Power do take interns on across the whole business. So for example, I've got peers that have worked in control, that have worked in networks, so they pretty much take on year in industry people anyway throughout the whole business. So there's a huge variety of areas to get involved in. For me personally, a lot of the work I do is project based, so I quite often don't know what my next week will look like. I have been working a lot recently on our employee engagement survey. We've had that rolled out and that's just closed, so I'm going to be doing the analysis on the results that come back for that. I'm also doing a lot of work on policy at the moment. We're kind of, I suppose, upgrading our policy suite. We're rewriting all of our policies at the moment just to have a more kind of supportive and kind of friendly tone to them. So I'm working on that. I've kind of put together the guidance of how we're going to rewrite them, and we're going to share that with the wider function so that everybody can input in the rewriting of them. So I personally get involved in a huge variety of things. And what's been really great about Scottish Power is that they've encouraged me to get into whatever I want to get into, essentially, if there's something going on that I'm interested in. For example, Melanie does a lot of work with our Scottish Power Foundation, and I love working with the foundation. So she asked me to come along and help screen applications for funding, for awarding funding. So I helped her out with that. I'll hopefully be helping her again with this year's lot of applications. So they're extremely encouraging and just want to kind of help you get the best out of your year-long traineeship, I guess.
Yeah, and that's really valuable kind of in-work experience that you can't get at university, I guess.
Exactly.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if Melanie or Mary want to add to that.
Oh, sorry, Olivia. I was just going to say, I think one of the things I would say is I remember myself when I was going through the interviews many moons ago for graduate jobs when I was coming out of uni, and not getting through to the next round, and being that quite deflating. And then once I'd had 6 months work experience, my first job, I was like, now I understand what they mean by that. That question, I'd be much better placed. And that is actually, all these years later, still the same. I do think there's a complete difference between the academic element to it, and then being able to operationalize that a little bit. And so I think that's one of the things with the work experience routes, and why placements such as Year in Industry have become far more powerful, because they actually give the young person that opportunity to practice a little bit about what they've learned. And then when they go, whether that's, as I say, jobs with us or with our supply chain or generally elsewhere, they're in a much better place to be able to demonstrate, because they have got some experience.
Definitely one thing, listening to it being told to you at university and actually having to do it when you go into work, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks very much. We've got a couple more questions coming in. So one for Leona. Someone's asking, the guarantee talks a lot about the responsibility or asks of the employer. However, what is the role of education within the guarantee and the asks of educators in the classroom? So how can the developing the young workforce support education to promote the guarantee to pupils and parents and employers? Does that make sense, Leona?
Yeah, so DYW is part of the Young Persons Guarantee within the Scottish Government team, and also within the kind of policy and planning area of the Young Persons Guarantee. So fundamentally, we're starting the Young Persons Guarantee in senior phase in secondary school, and developing the young workforce is a key way to do that. And recognising that through the additional investment in the schools coordinators, that's almost a £10 million annual investment from the Scottish Government to support and expand the role of developing the young workforce in schools, because what we'd had previously were 21 regional groups, and this is about enhancing that and actually having these individuals based in the schools, so they're part of the school team, they're part of the the organisation of the school. And that's been particularly important just now as we see young people in school, they're out of school, they're back in school, and it's about how do we ensure that those young people are still getting that employer experience, even if they can't physically go on a work placement. How do we use virtual tools? So we've enhanced that delivery, I guess, through education, through the schools coordinators.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think it's really important what you're saying about getting in at that early stage, so that young people know what is available to them, because it can be quite, as Melanie and Mary said, it's confusing for employers, but I guess it can be equally confusing when you're a young person trying to navigate your way after school. So yeah, that's really important. I guess just a final question before we have to wrap up. We've just got 1 minute left, and it's just for Melanie and Mary. Hopefully you can maybe answer it quite quickly, but they're just asking, do you have like a mentor or a supervisor for your young person? Is there someone kind of linked with them that they can go to, or is it not?
Yeah, all our programmes that we run, there's mentors involved, either from Scottish Perth staff who are mentors, or some of our partners like the Engineering Development Trust give a mentor to each young person who joins a business. And we have great wraparound support from our charity support from Enable and Bernardo's. So any students who are in the business with us know where to go if they need any support. So yes is the answer.
Thank you so much. I think that brings us nicely to, it's 1:30 on my screen. I don't really want to go over. So Lee, I don't know if you just want to.
No, thank you. We'll talk about perfect timing. So just a quick thank you to our speakers, so Leona from Scottish Government and Lucy, Mary and Melanie from Scottish Power, who I'm sure you'll agree have shared some great practical insight, knowledge, expertise, and been really genuine and in your explanations and in your responses. Like I said earlier, and like I know Melanie, you said, that I really welcome the intent from Sandy Begbie, Leona and the Scottish Government teams to simplify the landscape and to help our CIPD members navigate the different programmes and opportunities. I think that there's so much out there, and I think that there's a lot we can do more as a profession to support this, but I think that enabling us to see what's out there and how it can achieve success is great. I liked, Melanie, you gave some great examples of why it's important to Scottish Power, and it's the right thing to do to support these different programmes. And Mary, you gave a great comprehensive summary of the different programmes that you're running as Scottish Power for different audiences, and I guess useful insight for those that listened in today and those that will in the future around the kind of how you're connecting it with your talent acquisition strategies. And a very passionate account, Mary, of why it's important to the people that get involved in these programmes. And I also liked your reflection on how you position it with line managers. So I think that that's a hugely valuable insight around line managers who clearly have to be involved in supporting these programmes, but don't just see the young people as free support or just an extra pair of hands that they need support throughout the different programmes. And of course, as I've said before, Lucy, great insight into your experience. So thank you to all for listening. Thank you to our speakers. We will be sharing this on demand afterwards, and I'd like to signpost, lots to reflect on, so I'd like to signpost you to the Scottish Government resources that are available and the website that's coming, Leona, and also to highlight some resources that are available on the CIPD's website, and so guidance that might not at the moment be specific to Scotland, but actually would be, there's some great resources there for you. And this is an area of strategic importance to the CIPD, and I do know that we've got further insight, evidence and guidance coming. So that's it, I've managed to take us over, so I will stop now, and thank you to our speakers and to all of you for listening.